Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And we are live finally, coming up with a great session. This is much needed, much essential. And I think this kind of session is completely new for the open source space and the developer space. Thanks, Navindu, for joining. And talking about Navindu, he has a great experience in open source. He has been an open source contributor and also an evangelist speaker at many open source conferences. So, really excited for this session. And in this session, basically, we'll be covering mostly about how non-code contributions can help open source project to sustain. Yes, only contributions like code and other things may not help alone, right? So, the non-code contribution, which can include evangelism, which can be anything from evangelism to technical writing. So anything which comes in between is a non-code contribution. So basically, we'll be evangelizing, we'll be talking about this one. And because there are people waiting for these opportunities, at the same time, there's a high need and demand to help open source projects to sustain. So this session sums up everything, and it'll be a 30-minute session. So enjoy and feel free to ask questions. We have Q&A section. You can use that section, and we have chats. If there is something you want to address or something you want to add on as a pointer, like if Navindu is adding some points and you have some better idea about that one, you can add your own points in the public session. We would like to see your insights as well. And if you have any questions, go to the Q&A section. And in between, there might be some polls coming up. Try to engage and help people who are beginners who want to understand these things. So this is not just for beginners, it's for everybody. So it can be anyone. People who are new to open source, people who are new to coding, who are experts. I think it's for everyone. We have to understand this thing. And over to you, Navindu.
Thanks, Joshua. Thank you for that introduction and stewarding this event as well, and pushing me to come and speak at AVL. So really thank you. I hope everyone can see my screen, and it is the main window you are seeing. Okay, cool. So let's begin the session, and welcome everyone to this session. And so I'm Navindu. I'm an open source maintainer at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And today I'm here to talk about non-code contributions to open source. So let's start this session by looking at some numbers. So 80% of the maintainers need help in finding and recruiting new contributors. And 92% of employers say finding talent with open source skills is difficult. And 52% of the developers haven't contributed to open source projects yet, but they want to. And 33% of them don't know where to start. And 31% think they aren't skilled enough. So if any of these resonates with you, this session is for you. So it doesn't matter even if you are a seasoned open source contributor or a seasoned developer or someone who is learning programming or someone who is getting into software engineering, getting into open source. This session is for you. And before we get started, a little bit about me. So I maintain two Cloud Native Computing Foundation projects, Meshery and Service Mesh Performance. I do things around service meshes, and I also created and maintain NSFW filter, which is open source browser extension. So you can reach out to me in my social handles. I'll be responding if you reach out to me in all three of these places. So, all right. And a couple of housekeeping things. The slides and takeaways from this session are available in this link. I'm not quite sure if this link is broken, but let me know if it is broken and I will share a different link. So you can find all these slides and slides and takeaways and some key points from this session in this URL. And feel free to ask questions in the comment section in this URL as well if you have questions after this session and if you want to reach out to me. So before we look into how you can make non-code contribution or how you can contribute to open source, I think it is important to understand why you should contribute to open source. So let's start with the why. So the first and obvious reason for why you should contribute to open source is building your skills. So if you are a new programmer or a student, this might resonate really well with you because you are learning and you need some place to showcase or to apply what you have learned. So that is an important thing for you to do as a new programmer. So open source can help you build your skills. And you can also, from a career perspective, you can also build your resume. So contributions to open source projects are taken as are considered really good when someone reviews your resume, especially in case of a software engineering position or anything, any position that is in tech. So open source contributions or in getting involved in open source projects will really help you build your resume and stand out when you apply for jobs. And the third reason is you can build your network. So open source projects revolve around open source communities, and where there is a community, there is an opportunity for you to build your network. You can meet new people who might be interested in the same things as you. You can find people who can help you code, or who can mentor you. You can even find people who are in the same position as you, like a learning partner. So so basically there are a lot of opportunities for you to build your professional network, and you get to meet a lot of people by attending these open source events like conferences and the other tech events. And from a personal standpoint, what you can do is what you get here is you can contribute to the software that you use. So if you are a user of a particular project, if you use a particular open source project that you have been a particular open source project, then what you can do is you can contribute to it to make it better. So some of these projects might not fit in what you might not fit your use case. So you can basically contribute to the upstream repo and add your own features. So yeah. So that is another motivation for you to contribute to open source. And as I mentioned before, from a personal standpoint, you can find mentors or people to help you in these open source communities. So these people can help you build your career, build your skills as a software engineer, or build your skills as a tech person. And combining all these reasons, maybe you just want to join a community. So maybe you just want to be a part of a community where people are like-minded as you, and contributing to open source is a great way to do that. So yep, now that we have that out of the way, you might have some, you might fit in one of those categories. So let's discuss why you should consider non-code contributions. So what are non-code contributions? Like as Joshua mentioned in the intro of this session, non-code contributions can be anything that is not code, anything that helps the open source project or the open source community that doesn't involve directly contributing code. So why should you consider making non-code contributions where everyone else is contributing code, making pull requests, making commits? So why should you consider non-code contributions? So I'm gonna drop a bomb here and say non-code contributions are more valuable than contributing code. I have seen in my time working in open source, I have seen that most projects benefit a lot more from non-code contributions. So these are often more valuable than contributing code. And more often there are very few non-code contributors. So if you take a look into any open source projects, I can freely say any open source project, there will be more code contributors than non-code contributors. And if the project is small, you will find that even if the project is technically very good, you might find that people might not be using it, or there might be a lack of documentation, there might be a lack of social promotion. So all these other factors also affect the success of a project. So most probably most projects will have a very few non-code contributors. So this is a great place for someone to be in and make an impact. Yes. So comparing with the code contributions, such non-code contributions can have a very huge impact on a project's success. So let's consider an example of documenting something. So writing documentation definitely does not involve writing code, at least on an abstract level. So people who write documentation can actually make the project stand out more, or make or bring in more users to the project. So basically, such impact, there can be high impact on your project, on a project success with non-code contributions. And from a personal standpoint, you might not be a great coder, so you might not think you are up to contributing code to open source projects. So that is also a reason why someone might go and start making non-code contributions. But you can definitely evolve from here and start contributing code. And the other factor is you like or you are skilled in making contributions the other way. So in other ways, so even if you don't code, you know that, or you are skilled at making open source contributions that can help the project. So that is also a great motivation for someone to get into non-code contributions. And definitely non-code contributions can be a stepping stone to start contributing code. So non-code contribution can put you on a path where you can eventually start contributing code. You will get more familiar with the project, you will get more familiar with the code base, and you will get more familiar with the community of people surrounding it. So eventually you will be able to reach a point where you can start contributing code. So let's get to the main agenda of this session. So how you can make non-code contributions. So the things I mentioned here are things that I find are most impactful in an open source project. And I think I cover all of the ways you can make non-code contributions, and these are highly impactful. And from my experience, these contributions really help open source projects scale up and build a huge user base. So let's look into how you can make non-code contributions. So I have broadly categorized non-code contributions into writing. This would involve creating content. So if technical content. So if you are into technical writing, if you are into creating content for others, this is the best place. You can definitely use your writing skills to contribute to open source projects. And the second category is designing. So if you are a visual designer, you work with the Adobe Suite, and that is your home. So what you can do is use your color palettes, and what you can do is contribute designs to the project. There are definitely a lot of areas where a project might need some designs and artworks, including but not limited to blog posts, social media promotions, and even within the project, there might be some user interface. There might be user interfaces where design is needed, so you can bring in your input in these areas. And the next is testing. I like to call it testing or using. So basically, as a user or a tester of the project, what you can do is you can test out the project. You can be a very picky user. You can be a very rude user. You can basically report back a lot of bugs and let the creators of the project know that there are missing things, there are bugs, and you need features. So you can be such a user and report bugs. Those are definitely very good contributions. We will look into more of what these are in a couple of slides. And moving on, another great way to contribute to open source is by mentoring. So as a mentor, you are expected to have some technical skills. So this might be for someone who is a bit more experienced as a developer. So as a mentor, you can help other people or other contributors make contributions. So what you can do is you can help review pull requests. You can review design specifications. You can even teach a person how to proceed with a language that you are a master or you have some experience on. And yeah, the list goes on. And the final way you can make non-code contribution, and one of the ways I think it is very influential is being a community manager or an organizer. So as a community, like I mentioned before, open source projects revolve around open communities, and there needs to be a person who can effectively manage the project, the people surrounding the project, and the community around the project. So this is where a community manager comes in. So this is definitely a great way to contribute to open source, and which can eventually lead to full-time offers, or all of these ways can lead to full-time offers from companies that work on open source. So let's take a look into all of these categories in a bit more detail. So let's start with writing. So if you are good at technical writing, and if you are interested in creating content, this is for you. So having good writing skills is definitely a good thing in any career, but in case of tech, having a knack for technical writing and creating content that is geared towards software developers is really important. And if you have such a good writing skill, this is for you. And what you can do here is you can write documentation. So every project needs documentation if you want it to be used. I have used a lot of projects with zero documentation, and I always end up having to get into conversation with the open source maintainers that might span multiple days. So it is always a real pain. So having a good documentation is definitely not hyped enough. So every good project that you use will have extensive documentation, and in case of CNCF and Kubernetes, there is even a separate interest group that is geared towards just documentation. So documentation is pretty important, and this is a significant way you can contribute to the project. And when you are new to the project, you will the initial thing that you would do is you will test out the project. And to test out the project, what you will do is you either go through the documentation, and if there are any tutorials or any blog posts written on how to use that particular project, you will be looking into that. So most probably most small projects or projects that doesn't have a large company backing to it might have some discrepancies in their tutorials and blog posts. So there might be things missing in the documentation. There might be things missing in the tutorials and blog posts. So as a new user, you will have an eye to catch all these things, because you are completely new to the project and you would not be assuming anything, and you will want to have complete documentation or a complete tutorial in their documentation page or in their website. So what you can do as an initial contributor is you can open up issues for such missing pages or missing things, or if you face any issues while you are working through tutorials or while you are working through blog posts, and you can try and fix this. So writing tutorials and writing blog posts is a great way to not only attract more users, but it also helps in marketing the project, and no one says no to free marketing. And another significant way you can contribute is to translate documentation. And I want to make it a point here that you don't need to translate documentation into every language. I have seen one CNCF project has documentation in Malayalam, but I don't think anyone uses documentation in Malayalam. But there are significant other languages that people use. For example, Spanish is one language that people frequently use. I'm saying that because, for example, in India, people generally, the tech community generally communicates in English, and it will definitely be difficult to translate into every Indian language. So English is fine for India, but there are many countries that speak Spanish, and developers use Spanish to communicate. Another example is Chinese. So if you know any of these two languages, like English and Spanish, or English and Mandarin, what you can do is you can translate documentation so that it will reach a bigger user base. For example, China definitely has a lot of developers and a big user base, and they expect a lot of things to be written in Chinese. And if you Chinese, I mean in Mandarin. So what you can do is you can help translate the documentation, and this will definitely help the project. And another significant way is to create content for social media. So an open source project might have different social media handles, like in Twitter, LinkedIn, even Reddit. So what you can do is create content for these platforms, and this will help in promoting the project and marketing the project. So like I mentioned before, writing content is the best place to start if you are new. You will get a good idea of what the project is, because you'll be working on documentation, and documentation generally means what you can do with the project. So it is a good place to start if you are new. And what you can do is go through the existing docs and tutorials and find areas to improve. And you can open up issues and even fix these issues. Like opening up issues is by itself a significant contribution. You can also fix this if you are up for it. All right, now let's look into how you can make contributions by being a designer. So like I mentioned, designing involves creating artworks. As for people who are creative and who are more into the front end part of things, like how things should be displayed to the user, and more concerned about user interface. So or even if you are not a developer, you can, even if you just have the visual designing skills, this is for you. So what you can do is you can create art, and this art can be used in blog post, social media post, and even like if the project has some swags, you can design a t-shirt. So the list is endless. Basically, you can use your creative side, and you can create artworks for all these different places. And another way is to create a style guide. So if you are into some into software and into tech, you will have a good designer will have a knack for designing better user interfaces. So what you can do here is you can create a style guide. So most of the open source projects lack visual consistency, and like we say in our company, consistency is key. Consistency is quality. So having a consistent design is really important for projects to go from an okay project to something a lot of people will use and will have a large user base. So as a designer, you can create a style guide and you can ensure that there is a visual consistency in the designs in the entire software. All right, now let's move on to testing. So I say testing using because you can be a general user of the project or you can be an explicit tester of the software. So in both the cases, you use the project and you help improve it from a user's perspective. So most developers of the project will be too close to see any obvious issues, any bugs, or they might be unaware of their user base and what features they exactly want. So as a user, you can help the open source project by making such contributions like opening up issues of bug reports, of feature requests, or any UX user experience improvement that they found was an issue. So to do that, you can report bugs. So this is pretty obvious. So when you are using the project or when you are testing the project, if you run into a bug, don't just stop there, but go to there will definitely be a link to where users can report bugs. If not, then you should definitely open up an issue to add that. And what you can do is there will be an issue tracker or some kind, maybe GitHub issues, or if they're using GitLab, then it's issues. So what you can do is open up an issue mentioning what issue, what bugs, or what exactly the bug you faced. And when you are opening up bugs, make sure that you be as specific as possible. Don't just say this thing is not working, but instead make a record of the environment you are running. So if it is a web app, record the browser version, the browser you are using, the version of the browser you are using, and the version of the software that you are using, and try to give guidance to the developer on how they can reproduce the bugs. So this is definitely not an easy process, and this is definitely a significant contribution. You are not just saying things are not working, you are saying why the things it is not working, and you can actually help the developers fix this bug. And another significant way as you can contribute as a user is to become an advocate or an evangelist. Evangelist is a pretty strong word, but let's stick with advocate, I guess. So what you can do as an advocate is as you use the project, you can promote it to others who might need the same product as yours. So as a if you are using a particular software and you know people who might benefit from that software, try and pitch the software to the other person. So this will definitely help market the project. And if you have a significant follower base, or if you have significant number of people who listen to you, this could really help the project. And another important way you can contribute is to help improve user experience. So user experience issues are not necessarily bugs, but when you use the product, you might feel something is missing, or there should be a button for this, or this should have worked this way. So you might think something like that, and what you can do to contribute here is you can report these issues with the developers and help them work towards a better user experience. And another great way is to sign up for alpha or beta testing. I think many of you might be familiar with alpha or beta testing. At least beta testing, if you are a developer, you might have, I think it is 100% that you must have signed up for as a beta tester of one app or the other. So as an alpha or a beta tester, what you will get is you will have early access to new features, new enhancements, new releases of the project. So as an alpha or a beta tester, what you can do is play around with this new release or new feature and test out this new feature and report back any issues you faced or all the things I mentioned, any improvements that can be made. And so you basically become a voluntary QA tester. So you voluntarily work as a quality assurance guy. So this is definitely a good contribution. And there are a lot of open source projects that invite alpha or beta testers very frequently, and this can be a very significant contribution. And another way that I mentioned was to become a mentor. And so if you have significant skills in the particular tech stack you are working, or if you are interested in helping others make contributions, you can pay it forward, which is the I think which should be the motto of open source communities. So you can pay it forward by mentoring other contributors. So as a mentor, what you can do is you can help them make pull requests, you can answer their questions, or you can provide explicit guides to them based on your experience. So review code and mentor a contributor, like I mentioned. And there are enough open source programs out there that will connect a mentor and a mentee. So Google Summer of Code, Linux Foundation mentorship programs are some examples, and you can find some of these in the link provided below. So after this session, you can probably get some references, resources, and takeaways in this URL provided. So I have curated a list of such programs to help both mentors and mentees. So you can take a look at that as well. And finally, let's come to community managing and organizing. So this is a really great way to contribute to open source. And I have been doing some level of community managing and organizing in my job. So as a developer, but this is a very significant contribution to open source projects. And as I mentioned before, community is the heart of open source. So open source projects thrive as the community surrounding the project thrives, or the community, the ecosystem thrives. So basically, community is an integral part of open source. So the question is, who manages these open source communities, and who will manage the contributors who are contributing the project, who are part of this community, and who manages the project? So these are questions a community manager can help solve. So what I have found being part of a couple of communities is that there is a lot of lack of community managers who are aware of the projects. Like I have seen community managers who have no clue of what is going on in the project, but they still show up and help others. But there is a significant lack of quality community managers, people who are well invested in the project, who has a lot of context about the project, and contributors who has a lot of context about the ecosystem surrounding the project. And so such community managers are really lacking. So this is an area that you can surely fill in. So there is a significant demand for such community managers. So as a community manager or an organizer, you can organize the project. What I mean by this is there will be a large number of code contributors in the project or non-code contributors in the project, but there will be a lack of organization. Like people won't be, there won't be enough people to triage the issues. There won't be enough people to run the meetings. There won't be enough people to organize events, talk at conferences. So there will be a lot of lack in the project organization. So you basically end up being a project manager or a product manager, and you try to organize this project. And another thing you can do is you can be a release manager. So releases involve bringing together a lot of people who might be working on very different things. And as a release manager, your job is to make sure that all the features are delivered, and you should be able to coordinate with the different contributors who are working on different parts of the project and ensure that the product is ready for a release. So this is also a significant contribution. And like I mentioned, with documentation, there is a special interest group just for releases within the CNCF communities. So that is a significant contribution. And going above organizing the project, you can help the project market by organizing events and meetups. So you can sign up the project to speak at technical conferences. You can organize meetups with the contributors. So you can organize meetings as well. So these are different ways you can become a community manager and organizer. And the final way you can really make an impact as a community manager is to recruit more contributors. So there is open source projects needs a lot of contributors to, if the project is not supported by a large tech company or it is not fully funded, there is, and such projects work or such projects get forward by more contributions. So get more contributors to the community, and this will help more people work on the project and help the project release new features and fix bugs as well. And after all this, there is a caveat. So the caveat here is that to be a successful non-code contributor, you have to still be technical, and you can definitely be non-technical and still be successful as a non-code contributor. But to really make an impact within an open source community, within an open source ecosystem, is you should have technical knowledge, at least about the particular project or the surrounding ecosystem. So to give an example, I work mostly on cloud native things. So if I don't know what Docker is, or if I don't know what Kubernetes is, then I can't contribute code. That is obvious, but I cannot also be a successful non-code contributors because I won't know what I'm talking about. So you should have at least some level of technical knowledge to make a significant impact to the project. All right, to summarize the session, why should you contribute to open source? Open source is definitely gaining traction. There is a lot of money in open source, and people get paid a lot to work in open source as well. And companies are hiring people with open source skills. So you can get a job without having to go through 10 technical interviews and trying to mug up DSA problems. And it also helps your career in building skills, resume, and your network. And you also get to be part of a community to get mentorship, and you get to contribute to the projects you use. And why should you make non-code contributions? So because non-code contributions has a very huge impact, and it might also be the case that you have skills in non-code things, and it can also be the stepping stone to eventually contribute code. And how do you make non-code contributions? You can, if you are a writer, you can use your writing skills to write blog posts, tutorials, documentation, or even social media posts. As a designer, you can create artworks, you can create a style guide. And as a tester and a user, you can report bugs, you can ask for new features, you can sign up for alpha or beta testing, you can even help improve the user experience. And as a mentor, you can help other contributors make open source contributions. You can review pull requests. You can sign up for different mentorship programs and help other contributors. And as a community manager, you can help more people get into your project and more people start contributing. You can also organize the project, organize the community that surrounds the projects, and organize the people who are working in the project. You can even become a release manager and help manage the releases, help move the project forward. That's all my slides. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. I think we have still time left for questions. So, or you can hit me up on my socials or the link I shared before. So I will definitely respond to you as soon as possible. So back to you, Joshua.
Thanks for that enlightening session on open source, especially, and the caveat, which was the end, that was very important, first of all, and that has to be realized in this space. And I guess we have one question from Hitesh. Could you look over into the Q&A section and how to approach for community managed roles?
Yep. So the first thing you should do definitely is to join the project community. So if the project you are looking for has a Slack channel or a Discord server, what you should do is definitely join the community. And what you should do first is be a wallflower or be a bug on the wall and see how things are being run in that particular community. And what you will find is you will find areas where you can definitely improve. So things can be like, you can start with saying hi to new contributors, saying hi to new people who join the server. And what you can do from there is you can help like onboard new contributors. So if someone new joins, what you can do is you can share some documentation. So you can share some documentation that probably works the developer contribution. So there must be a contributing guide in your project, and you can definitely share that to the new joinees. So you can start small like that, and once you gain some reputation in the community, you can go ahead and host meetings and meetups, and the list is like it's what you make of it. So there isn't definitely a set of things for a community manager to do, but it definitely depends on the project. And you can start that.
Yeah, it was. I think it sums up. To add on to this, Hitesh is adding a new question. Before that, I would like to add on to the earlier question. So basically, you see first if the project aligns with your goals and with your interests. So that is the first important thing. Don't just go for a role just like you have to show it as a community manager on LinkedIn, right? So go for something big, something like you should have a vision for long term, right? Go for that kind of things. And if you have a prior experience as a community person, like if you are evangelizing or something, you can show it as a proof that, hey, I'm already doing this, I'm really interested in this, and it aligns with my goals. So you can approach the maintainers directly and people who are really influential in the project community. I think that would do as to kickstart the community management role. So yeah, I think that sums up. And we have another question by Hitesh again. As we know, the path for SD involves various positions like SD 1, 2. Does DevRel has something like this?
I think Joshua is the better person to answer this question because he's a DevRel. But in my opinion, like developer advocates start as software engineers at some, and they shift to DevRel at some point. So I don't know if there is a path to DevRel.
So it's not, DevRel is not like it's a huge thing again. So we cannot really justify, this answer cannot be justified, but yeah, I like to give a small idea on that. So basically, as I told, if you love something, if you love open source, go there. If you love startups, go there and evangelize about it. Do the non-code contribution, whatever you can. Build relations and try to give value. That's more important. This is not marketing or something, but you are giving direct value and you are an ambassador for that project or for that company. So slowly you can grow with experience, with self-branding as well. That is more important, because I guess DevRels they don't stay at a particular company for so long. Maybe after 2 or 3 years, they try to go for new companies, new interesting projects. So that's how it evolves. So yeah, it cannot be really compared with SDs, I believe. It is completely a different stream, and it is much needed for projects which are open source. Yeah, so we have another question. I think you can answer that, Navendu.
Yeah, so Satyam mentions that he wants to learn web development before he starts exploring open source. I would say that don't wait till you become a master of something. You can just start right away. Start building things in the open. So even if you are learning things, there will be definitely other people who might be in the same position as you, and what you can do is you can build things open, and you can open source the projects that you build while you are learning, and this will definitely help others. And maybe someday, like, you will get after doing a couple of iterations, you will definitely get a hang of something you can build, and it might take off, and you will be an open source maintainer or a benevolent dictator. So yeah, don't wait until you are a master. Just start exploring open source.
Awesome. So there is another question, I guess.
The next question is pretty interesting. Yeah. So if you haven't seen the CNCF landscape, let me try to show this to you. So CNCF, if you don't know, is Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which is it's a sub-organization of the Linux Foundation, and CNCF hosts a lot of cloud native projects. So I didn't see this landscape when I started contributing, so which was really helpful. If I have seen this, I might have become overwhelmed and would have never used it. So what you can do is, what I would say you can do is, you can start exploring CNCF things. So maybe if you start with Docker and Kubernetes, and you work your way around things like Grafana and Prometheus for monitoring, and like you explore where things take you. And for me, it took to service meshes. So the projects I work mostly falls under this small box. So there are a couple of projects in this box that I work with frequently. So, and yeah, so that's basically it. Like I would say you should contribute to projects that you already use, and there are other things like if you are a student or a new developer, you can explore CNCF projects in the Linux Foundation mentorship program. So let me just post that on chat. So so as a new contributor, what you can do is you can explore projects that invites mentees. So these projects, what this generally means is that these projects invite new contributors. So you can check out the CNCF projects which are under the mentorship program. So that should help you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that sums up the answer, right? And I have a few more insights to share. So I looked at the polls that were really interesting. So first poll was about like how many people, 80% of them are open source enthusiasts who have come here and who want to learn. And the second thing is about open source sustainability. I would like to comment on this one. Like projects of in the open source space are sustainable only because they have some backing from big companies, right? So there can be a lot of big companies are already partnered with a lot of open source projects. You can see React and all these things started as an open source project. Even TensorFlow and everything started as an open source project, and later it was acquired, I can say, or partnered by different companies. So that's how they got the quality contributions. So what it means is when people talk, write, and evangelize about these things, right, then it can be more sustainable and more better contributions can come. Because there is nothing like if today you have a good contribution, that doesn't mean that tomorrow we will also have a good contribution. So we should search for new people, new experts who can actually improve the project in all areas. So I think open source space really needs sustainability, and Avial's vision is actually to make open source sustainable through content creation. That's the initial idea of Avial, and we are still in the beta stages as of now. We are coming up with a lot of content, a lot of programs for people and for the community, especially open source and developer communities. So you can sign up and you can just see what we are actually doing. You can give us the feedback. You can connect with me personally, or there is Twitter handle of Avial. You can DM the Twitter handle if you have any feedback or anything. And Navendu, would you like to comment on this one about open source sustainability?
I think like what you do at Avial is will really help sustain open source communities, and there is definitely a lack of things that lack of such initiatives that help open source projects. But since like I work in a CNCF project, so when I started, we were an independent project, and we eventually donated our project to CNCF. And having such an organization or having such a foundation is will definitely help sustain the projects. And I'm also interested by the second poll. What type of non-code contributions you are personally more interested in? And writing is the overwhelming answer. And as Joshua mentioned, there are writing about open source projects is definitely a key factor in making the project more accessible to users and making the project more marketable and promoting the project. So writing is definitely an important contribution. And I go back to my caveat that if you want to be a good writer, you should definitely be you should definitely have some technical knowledge. And
sure.
Do you have any
so that's another Q&A, but before that I would like to add on to what Navendu explained, right? So writing is the primary thing, and all developers are good readers and writers. I believe like they love to explain things and they love to sketch the things they have already coded, right? So while you are coding, you sketch some things, you write on the rough paper. Instead of that, when you structure all the things together, it can be helpful for someone. So that's how people can learn new things. When it comes to open source, it's again the same. Documenting is the first thing. If there's a good documentation, you'll get more contributors. And not only documentation, there are tutorials on how you can actually use the open source tools. then there will be more traction to that open source project and more people will start using it on a daily basis. One is tutorials, one is documentation, one is just general articles. You can say comparing open source tool with something, and so that more people can come. So there are lots of ways in the writing space, and if you are already a writer, just let me know. And if you are interested to write for the projects we have onboarded at Avial, you can go to avial.com/projects. You can see a bunch of projects and there's a bunch of content. I think like hundreds of articles are already on Avial platform. You can learn about this and improve the project. That's the end goal, right? You have to learn the project and improve the project. And coming to other options, I think that's also important, right? Speaking, if you are good at communication, if you have a good voice, you can come up, understand the project. If you have little knowledge of everything, you can learn the things technically and non-technically. But technical knowledge is important, because when you grasp the things better, you can speak better about it, or else it will be just like a marketing thing. So it's not marketing, it's evangelism again. So that's important. Testing, designing, social media, because everything in this world is ruled by social media, because that's how things are driven. And mentoring people who are beginner and who wants to learn something. You can be a mentor. There are mentorship programs already, which Navendu mentioned. Avial is also coming up with lots of programs. You can stay tuned and share with your friends that this is the new thing and there are a lot of opportunities for you. And community manager, again, it comes under the community space. It's again a huge ocean, but it sums up everything. Thanks for these polls and keeping it interacted. I think there's another 2 more questions you can take, Navendu.
Yep. So Satyam asked, which should I choose in beginning of non-code contribution? So I would say you can choose any based on what you are interested in and what your skills are and what the project needs. So if a project lacks documentation and if you are skilled at writing, you can definitely contribute as a documentation guy. And then if the project lacks marketing, or if the project lacks social media post or anything, what you can do is you can become the social media manager, or you can become the designer of the project. So it is about finding the connection between what your interests are, what your skills are, and what the project needs. But as a beginner, the first thing you can do to start off is you can actually test the project. So you can start off as a user of the project. So there are a lot of projects which are still in the early stage. So they require a lot of inputs from the user. So definitely the first thing anyone should do when thinking about non-code contribution or thinking about even code contributions is to actually get your hands dirty by using the project and seeing what everything is.
I think that's the ultimate answer. Get your hands dirty, and then you can choose anything you want after that. You'll get a better idea. And finally, I have a last question from my side. So while I was a developer before, like I used to use so many open source tools and NPM packages while I was working. Then I found that some packages, the commits were 2 years ago or something like that. The last contribution was made 2 years ago. And though it was very useful, it was quite inactive, and people were asking that it should have been updated. We need more contributors. So do you think that it is because of the absence of non-code contributions it happened?
Yep, it could be, but it could be the case like there weren't enough contributors to keep the project flowing, and that could be the case when the project lacks evangelism or the project lacks marketing. So if people don't invite, if there are enough invites for new contributors to come in and work on the project, then definitely the project will become stale. But there could be other factors as well, like because most of the open source maintainers do this on a part-time basis. So most probably they will have full-time jobs. They will have a family to go back to, and they will have a life. So expecting a lot of things from the maintainers of these open source projects and giving them nothing in return is might definitely be the cause. And like programs like GitHub sponsors and Patreon and Open Collective are helping such projects, like helping the developers who are maintaining such projects. So I think things will definitely change in the coming future.
That's great. And also like Aviel which actually started by taking that problem statement as well to help maintainers and to get the things monetized in every way possible in open source, because we see a lot of communities outside developer space and open source space are already monetized when it comes to entertainment, gaming, everywhere it is monetization, influencer marketing, everywhere if you can see. But when it comes to our space, it is quite sad to see that people are suffering, maintainers are pressurized, and they're not getting anything in return. So I guess non-code contributions can drive code contributions, I can say, not completely, but in some or the other way. And that can help open source to sustain and make a better space for everyone. So there is one more question you can take.
Yeah. So can you share some tips on how to manage academics, internship with learning and open source? So this is definitely a difficult question to answer. I don't manage all these things together. There is definitely a trade-off. So if you are keen about academics and if you want to pursue a career in academia, then definitely you should be focusing more on academics. And with open source and internships, you can do internships within open source. So I had shared a link before in the chat. So there are a lot of open source internship programs out there that you can be a part of and that you can apply to, and they will give, what these programs do is they will give you a set stipend every month or every 3 months based on the duration, and so this will be a good amount, and you won't definitely need to go for another job or another internship to cover for your expenses, but basically you can get paid while working in open source. So if you are interested in open source and if you are looking for internships, then that is definitely the way to go. But like I mentioned at the beginning, like there is definitely a trade-off when you balance different things, and you can prioritize based on what you want to do in your future. So I think that would be the best thing.
Awesome. I think we summed up everything in just 45 minutes, not actually 1 hour. Thanks for all the questions, especially Hitesh and all others who have asked, Satyam and everyone. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks Navendu. And it was really insightful, hoping to do more and more things on open source sustainability and contributing open source. I think it's a high time to evangelize about this one and help people to know what exactly is happening. And it was really great session, and looking forward for another big thing. And if you are interested in learning all these things, we are coming up every week. Every weekend we'll have a lot of things, so stay tuned on our platform. You can go to events page, aviel.com/events. You can find a bunch of events over there. You can register, so you get to learn a lot of things in just a 30-40 minute session. That's the best part. Instead of taking a long course on some other platform, you can just try these and see where you are fitting into, and you can go ahead. So you can also join our Discord community. A lot of things are happening over there, and I'll put the link in the chat. Meanwhile, if you have any more questions, you can ask. We have 2 more minutes. Any final words, Navendu, before we conclude? You can do that.
Yep. I definitely hope the people who have joined this session gain something from this session, and they would definitely be inspired or at least drawn towards making contributions to open source. And I think I was able to convince them that contributing to open source is easy, and it doesn't require you to be much of a great developer or have a lot of experience under your belt. So I hope I'll see a lot of these people contributing to open source. And if you have any questions, or if you want to reach out to me, feel free to do so. I have just started being active on Twitter as well, so hit me up on Twitter as well. And Joshua, I look forward to have more sessions with Aviel, and thanks for inviting me again and setting up this session.
Thank you so much, Navendu. And thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. So today's Sunday. Have fun and have some time with the family and friends. And good night, everybody.